Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever we are in the world. Welcome to the RAS Project, a podcast covering no bullshit, 100% real, raw, and unfiltered rags to riches stories from amazing human beings around the world with emphasis on life, personal development, family, tech, and marketing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first live episode of the RAS Project that we've done in quite some time. And stay tuned because we've got a lot of things that I want to cover on this particular episode. We'll talk about the difference between knowing versus wanting versus entitlement. We are currently live on Facebook Live, on Twitch, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Periscope. And the audio version of this particular episode is going to be available on all the major audio podcasting outlets later on today. So make sure that if you haven't subscribed to the RAS Project, do so on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Google, on iHeartRadio, wherever you get your audio podcasts from. I hope my audio is actually working properly because I realized that right as I was going live that I actually didn't have my microphone actually configured properly, and so I hope that you guys can hear me. So again, if this is your first time tuning in, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. The very first thing I want to say is I want to say a massive thank you for everybody that took the time out of their day to submit a review for the podcast. A whole ton of you guys have submitted reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, and I'm eternally grateful for that. I'm eternally grateful for that because the purpose behind this podcast was to share value, to create impact, and change the lives of other people. Again, if this is your first time tuning in, my name is Ivan Temelkov. I'm your host of the RAS Project. You can reach me via text as well, 314-916-4875. Again, that's 314-916-4875. That is my private line. You can text me 24/7, 365. And you can always find more information about the RAS Project on any audio or video platform out there. And again, in this episode, we're going to talk about the difference between knowing versus wanting versus entitlement. I think on the internet, too many people are scrutinizing this, or they're just completely incoherent as to what the difference is. But before we dive into that, the first thing I do want to share with you guys is that the RAS project is actually going to be changing a little bit. Not by much, by a little bit. And what that really means is that effective this week, so today is April 12th, 2021, starting this week, the podcast will air on Mondays and Fridays only. There will no longer be a Wednesday show. And there's a lot of different reasons why I decided to do this, simply because, and one of the main reasons is because we're really going into a very busy season. And I've also realized that there's a lot of people out there who simply don't have a chance or are having a hard time keeping up with all the episodes, which is quite humbling to me because that tells me that there's a lot of people out there who are listening, who are getting value out of these episodes. You know, I've had people who have messaged me. I've had people who have shared amazing, amazing reviews, for the podcast. And actually, I'm going to read off one of the reviews for you guys because I was quite humbled, to be honest with you, on what some people said. So here's two of the latest reviews that actually came in. Uh, and again, I'm very, very humbled to you guys. So thank you for those of you that took the time to do that. So Ivan is fantastic interviewer, asking insightful questions of his guests that you don't always get on entrepreneurship podcast. It's a wonderful program, and you'll be sure to learn something new from each guest. Obviously, on this episode being solo, we don't have a guest, but we usually do have a guest on the RAS project. Another one. I love being a guest on the show. Great questions, powerful topics, and of course, great guests. This is a must subscribe for those who want to be more successful in life. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Andy, for those reviews. And one more. A lot of podcasts are filled with fluff and not a lot of substance. This is not one of them. The RAS Project has real people with real stories that are relatable to anyone and highly recommended. So if you guys didn't pick that up, zero fluff. There's no bullshit on this podcast. There's a lot of podcasts that you're going to get bullshit on, and that is the one thing that we simply do not do on this particular podcast. Let's see. What else I wanted to share in terms of housekeeping items. So the biggest thing really that's going to change starting this week is you're going to be getting 2 doses of the RAS project, live in video and obviously in audio that's going to be available. Make sure that you subscribe everywhere so that you can keep up with the episodes. And that's on the housekeeping items. Let's go ahead and jump into the main topic of this episode that I want to talk about, and that is talking about wanting versus knowing versus entitlement. Now, why do I want to talk about this? Okay. Why is it important to talk about this? Okay. So, a lot of people don't know the difference between you just know about something, you want something, and the entitlement behind it. Okay. So, knowing is you have intuition, and wanting is you have desire. But knowing and wanting are 2 different things. And entitlement is about the fact that someone owes you something. And honestly, these 3 things are so essential in entrepreneurship. And too many people, especially on the internet, on social media, and I see this every day on Facebook, on Instagram, and even on LinkedIn, a lot of people cannot delineate the difference between these 3 things. And I want to extrapolate these 3 things. I want to talk about the difference between what is knowing, what is wanting, and then, of course, entitlement. Now, where the subject actually stemmed from, knowing versus wanting and entitlement, when it pertains to life and entrepreneurship and business, is actually from episode 115 of the RAS Project, which is, we're on episode 116 right now. So the last episode, if you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to go and listen to it. Now, why is it so key to listen to that episode, and why should you listen to it? So on episode 115 of the RAS Project, I actually had the first psychic to join me on the podcast in the 6 years running of the RAS Project podcast. And the title of that episode, again, episode 115, What You Don't Know Will Hurt You or Benefit You. And this was a jam-packed episode. This was a jam-packed episode with Carol Beneos. I almost butchered that name. Beneos. Carol Beneos, who is a psychic. And it was an amazing conversation. By the way, just to kind of give you the backstory of that, I met Carol on Clubhouse about 2 months ago, roughly. And mind you, I've really been inactive on Clubhouse as well over the last couple of months since we had that discussion. So what's really ironic is I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. I'm a firm believer that dreams do come true. I'm a firm believer, and I'll talk more about this, the manifestation is real. And I'm proof of it, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. So when I met Carol on Clubhouse, we hopped off of Clubhouse 2 months ago and chatted on WhatsApp for 3 hours. Now, mind you, 2 complete strangers talking for the first time. And the synergy just, was jiving. And that is something that, doesn't happen often. with me. It's hard for me to find people who I just connect immediately. And I connected with Carol, and I invited her to come on the podcast. But one of the things that she's, so in the 3 hour discussion on WhatsApp, we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about her story, which she has a powerful story, and you can listen to her full story on the RAS Project, episode 115. You can download or watch it in video on my YouTube channel as well, or on Facebook if you want to scroll down that far from last week. But you can definitely find it on YouTube if you just search for the RAS Project, episode 115. And when I invited her on the podcast, she shared her story of adversity and challenges and headaches and havoc and going basically to hell and back and telling the story. But one thing that Carol said that really resonated with me ever since was she said, "I see 8 and 9 figures in your future, Ivan." Now, mind you, up until having Carol on my podcast, I had been a disbeliever in psychics. And honestly, I think it's because the last time I actually saw a psychic was over 6 years ago, roughly. And that was actually around the time, for those of you that follow me will know this. For those of you that don't follow me, this is a news flash for sure. But both of my kids are IVF kids, and so 6+ years ago, we actually saw a psychic, and that psychic actually had said that the journey to fatherhood was going to be difficult, but it's going to be all worth it. And I was in disbelief because I didn't want to believe, that the journey was going to be tough, because as a human being, I think we're conditioned in this world to want things to come to us so easily without actually putting in, the hard work and the sweat and the grit that's necessary to get the things that we want out of life and in business and in entrepreneurship. And so when Carol came on the podcast and she told me, Ivan, I see 8 and 9 figures, in your future, it really sparked something in my mind. And I messaged Carol actually on Instagram this past weekend and was like, hey, hope you enjoyed the podcast. It just aired, last week. I think it was on Friday of last week. And how did you like the episode? And then she said, thank you so much. I absolutely loved it. I felt like it was just two friends, shooting the shit. And that's exactly the kind of environment I wanted to create for this particular podcast, is to be very comfortable. For people that come on, amazing human beings that share the rags to riches stories, to feel comfortable. By no means not feeling discomfortable, because that's bullshit. Nobody should feel uncomfortable about telling their own story, because if they do, that means that they feel like they're being judged in a way anyway. So, but then one thing that Carol said, she said, but they also wanted me to tell you, I'm actually going to read this message to you guys because I'm going to butcher it. But her response after telling me that she sees 8 and 9 figures in my future was really interesting, because I'm trying to pull up the message, so bear with me for just a second. She said, so I had messaged her asking her how she was doing. And then she responded, how are you? That is great. That is your subconscious, because it will unfold. However, they want me to tell you that there needs to be a distinction between wanting and knowing. It will unfold for you. Knowing is a high vibration from which magic can happen. You do what you need to do and let it go, because 1000% it will unfold. Why am I sharing this to you, and how is this relevant? So after Carol messaged me back, really got me thinking about the difference between wanting something, knowing that it will happen, and entitlement. And this particular methodology, these three things right here, are so key to life, to relationships, to business, to entrepreneurship. Why? Let's talk about it. Wanting something, okay? When you want something, you have desire. You have desire. You don't necessarily have intent, though. You'll have desire. You have desire to buy your dream car. I just purchased one of my 3 dream cars, which, by the way, you can find on Instagram. I made a post about that. I just purchased an Audi A6 S-Line, 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. It's not a Lambo, and it's not an Audi R8, which are the other 2 bucket list cars, but it is one of my 3 bucket list dream cars, 3, not 2, 3, that I wanted to purchase, and that just recently happened. Now, I had wanted this car for at least 4 years now, okay? Since I first drove a brand new model of it. Yes, I did buy it pre-owned. I bought it in 16,000 miles, and it's in pristine condition. Practically looks like it rolled off the showroom because it was treated and conditioned in such way. But that's completely irrelevant. I'm talking about wanting here. I had wanted this vehicle for at least 4 years. The thing that I was missing is knowing that it would happen, because I wasn't completely intentional about it. I had a desire, which is wanting it to happen, but I didn't have the intent. I didn't have the fullest intent inside of me to actually pursue to make that happen. That's where wanting and knowing differentiate. You can want something. You can want something, but you also have to have intent inside yourself besides just desire in order for that to happen. So I know now more than ever, I know that there's 8 and 9 figures in my future. I know that I will build 8 and 9 figure business. My company, Razor Sharp Digital, is en route to making that dream happen. I know it will happen. I know that we will buy our dream home later this year. But there's a key differentiation. It's important to delineate the difference between wanting and knowing that that will happen. I want those things to happen. I want to build an 8-figure and 9-figure business. But more than that, I also know that I will buy my dream home with my family later this year, and I know that I'll be able to build an 8 and 9-figure business. You see, it's a matter of mentality. It's a matter of mentality. And I'm proof of it. You see, I knew that I was going to buy my Audi A6, one of my 3 dream cars. I knew that it was going to happen. 4 years ago, I wanted it to happen. But then over the last 2 years, I shifted my mindset towards knowing, being intentional about it. And then when the opportunity presented itself about a month ago, I made it happen. I purchased a vehicle. So principally, that is all the same in life and in business, in relationships. Do you want to be happy, or do you know you can be happy? Do you want to be successful, or do you know that you can be successful? Okay? And I won't go into a tangent about what success is, because in reality, you have to define success for yourself, which is something I personally struggled with for a long time. I didn't truly know what the definition of success was to me, but I embraced the definition of success based on what other people told me that success should be. And that, in part, is being conditioned to what success should be. No, that's bullshit. Success to me is being happy, being a good father, being a good husband, being able to have a thriving business, being able to make money, and being able to own my dream cars and my dream house. Okay? Like, that is my definition of success. What is your definition of success? And do you want to be successful, or do you know that you can be successful? You see, a lot of people want to be successful. A lot of people want to be happy. But not enough people know that they can accomplish those things. You see, knowing that you can be successful and you can be happy and you can achieve prosperity, largely in part is dependent upon confidence. How confident are you with yourself? How willing are you to do the things that other people aren't going to do? You know? And are you going to allow the setbacks? Are you going to allow the repercussions? Are you going to allow the hurdles that come your way to stop you in your tracks of accomplishing those things? And the third thing that I want to talk about is entitlement, because if you're just joining us on this episode, we're talking about wanting versus knowing versus entitlement, and extrapolating the difference between those three things as it pertains to life, relationships, entrepreneurship, and business. And if you are tuning in for the first time as well, you're listening to the RAS Project with yours truly. Make sure you subscribe to the RAS Project. That way you can get fresh episodes directly to your favorite platform. And you know what's really mind-boggling? Having bought one of my three dream cars, is that now I have access to all of this rich media that I can download other podcasts that I listen to as well. I can download more music. I'm a huge trance fan. I love electronic music. I love dance music, and up until now, I didn't have the technology available to me to be able to get access to these kinds of things. So it's kind of mind-boggling. But without getting off on a tangent, we're talking about wanting versus knowing versus entitlement in life, in entrepreneurship, and in business. And the one thing that I talked about is that how many people want certain things. Here's what's really mind-boggling, ladies and gentlemen, is this that with this pandemic in 2020, I've heard more and more people talk about how they want to make more money, they want to be happier, they want to be able to pay their bills, or they want to fix their relationship, or they want to get into better health. But all of these things are wants. That all of these people have massive amount of uncertainty. And knowing, like I said, knowing that you can accomplish those things comes with a level of confidence. You have to be confident. You have to be fearless enough. You have to be fierce. You have to be able to do the things that other people are unwilling to do. For instance, for me, I feel like I've worked 7 days a week for as long as I can remember. I'm talking at least 5 years. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And, I see a lot of people who put in 5 days worth of work, take off the weekend, and wonder why others are ahead of them. Well, first of all, look, if you want to just work 5 days a week to accomplish something, that's great. That's your mantra. But if you know that you want to accomplish something, that you're going to have to go the extra mile. You're going to have to put in more effort to get the things that you want. I'll give you another prime example, of the difference between wanting and knowing, is that I know that I will have the dad bod by end of summer, and hopefully the six pack. I say hopefully is because it's going to be a really, really, really steep journey, because I failed so much with it, because I've wanted it, but I haven't approached it with certainty. And even though there's been failures, I've talked about my health and nutrition and fitness also, and this roller coaster ride that I've been for the last couple of years, because it feels like I'll start and then I'll fall off the bandwagon, and then I'll start and I'll fall off the bandwagon. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is just because I know that I can accomplish my end goal. That's why I'm not giving up. You see, how resilient are you? How resilient are you willing to be to get the things that you want? Okay? Wanting and knowing are two different things. You might want to get certain things. Bigger house, more money, expensive car, new girlfriend, I don't know, you know, but knowing that those things will happen and being intentional and being persona of those things and being resilient enough to get those things and do the things that are required to make those things happen is about 1% of people, ladies and gentlemen. 1% of people that are willing to do that. Those are people that know what they want. They're willing to do what it takes. They're resilient enough. And they will not let anything stop them. That's me. I don't care about likes. I don't care about views when it comes to social media. I don't care. I only care about one person. One person. One person that can take away key information from the things that I share, because that one person, one life that I can change, that I can influence, will correlate to another life and another life and another life. And that's another thing that I think in social media too many people misconstrue, is that they want to create impact and influence, hopefully positive impact and influence, on a mass scale, but they're unwilling to start on a micro level. And you have to. How are you going to impact and influence? And impact is one of the core values with my company, Razor Sharp Digital. We want to create impact in the digital, in the marketing, in the social space. And we are going to. That's my certainty. That's knowing that we will accomplish that. And we are doing it. We just haven't done it on the mass scale just yet, because you have to start on a micro level. Okay? You have to start with one relationship at a time. And then another, and then another, and then another. One person, one relationship. Because your life will change based on one interaction, one person, one brand. And 99% of people have a hard time believing that. You know what most people gawk at? Is when someone buys a fancy car or a big house or flashes a lot of money, materialistic things. What they don't understand is what it took to get there. You guys have no idea what it took for me to even get this. One of my 3 dream cars, my Audi A6. You have absolutely no idea. But I'll give you a glimpse. How about a bankruptcy? How about having to move my family around? How about struggling to pay my bills? That was 3+ years ago. You know what? I had a lot of people who told me, Ivan, this entrepreneurship thing, man, you're not cut out for it. Why don't you just go get a $45,000 per year job? You'd be better off doing that. And that's just a glimpse of what the naysayers were saying. Do you think that if I believed what anyone told me of that magnitude, that I would ever get to where I am today? Not to mention doubling my business in revenue in 2020 during one of the most years in human history. One of the most challenging years of human history. And not only because of the pandemic, but with the presidential election also happening. Just a lot. How that influenced businesses and people, and how suicide rates have skyrocketed, and people that incurred stress. I doubled revenue in 2020 with my business. Now, why did I do that? And why can't you do it? You can't do it is because you think you have entitlement. Or you want it to happen, but you are uncertain about it. You don't know inside yourself. You don't have certainty. You don't have confidence. And I've been there. Okay? Because the second thing that I'm talking about here, so again, we're talking about the difference between wanting something in life or business, knowing, and entitlement. It's because a lot of people want things, and a lot of people feel like they're entitled to them. And entitlement is about thinking that someone owes you something. Nobody owes you anything. The world doesn't owe you anything. Your parents don't owe you anything. Your wife, your husband doesn't owe you anything. Your kids don't owe you anything. Okay? Nobody, nothing owes you anything. Because you have to pave your way. Nobody will pave the way for you. And that's exactly what a lot of people in 2020 thought. They thought they were looking for handouts because they thought that they were entitled to a handout because they were struggling. But you know what? The brands that sustained 2020 are the ones that were forced to get more creative, were forced to pivot. Because you know what? In times of despair, what do? You find an alternative or die. That's literally it. And that principle is the same in life and in business, in relationships. Look, are you unhappy in your relationship? Well, get out of it. I was married once. It was 8 years of my life. Waking up every single day being told that I'm a failure. In fact, my ex-wife still thinks I'm a failure. What, I guess 12 years later now, after our divorce. You know what? At the time, I did not want to go through a divorce. It was the last thing. I mean, nobody in my family had divorced, let alone me, right? But then I realized that was meant to happen. It had to happen. It had to happen because I had to move on with my life. And I embraced that change. But you see, so many people want to stay in their comfort zone. So many people want to maintain a status quo because they think that's the only way to live. Well, you can want something, okay, or feel entitled about it. That's what most people do. They feel like the government owes them something or their family or friends owe them something. Oh, but they want a better life. They want more. They want to make more money, but they're unwilling to take the steps necessary. They're unwilling to take the action that's required. You guys, you don't understand. Do you know how many times I've been criticized by my wife for working on weekends? And I still do. And I love my wife. I love you, babe. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. Okay? But do you know how happy my wife and my kids were when we were able to take a vacation in September of 2020? The first vacation, week-long vacation to Gulf Shores, Alabama, our favorite spot, in the midst of a pandemic. When most people are struggling to pay their bills, we rented a van, drove to Gulf Shores, Alabama, stayed on the 11th floor of a condominium that had an amazing view onto the Gulf of Mexico. Now, why am I telling you this, or why does it even matter? Because you are unwilling to sacrifice certain things. You want to live in your comfort zone. You want to maintain the status quo, yet you desire more out of life, out of your relationship. And that's what a lot of you don't understand. That you're not doing more to get more. Okay? So a prime example here is the reason the word extraordinary exists is because you have to get extra to become extraordinary. Or, excuse me, you need to do extra. You need to do more to be considered extraordinary. Okay? And ordinary is, well, normal, like everybody else. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is just that, a lot of people want to be extraordinary, but they're settling for ordinary and feel like they're entitled for ordinary or they're entitled to extraordinary. Excuse me. Well, that just is completely oxymoron is what that is. Okay. So putting in extra long hours, risking, sacrificing. When I spend money in my business, I wonder what's going to be the ROI behind this? Am I spending this money well? Is it going to generate a return that I'm expecting because I'm being intentional about it? And a lot of times there's a lot of uncertainty. That's just it. That's me wanting instant gratification. And I know there's no such thing. And I used to want instant gratification behind every kind of investment that I made. For instance, one of my employees, that I pay her to help manage our client accounts, their social media campaigns, their social accounts, to write content for their website. If I didn't have her, we wouldn't be able to manage this workload. So that's my ROI there. I had wanted an employee, and I was very uncertain whether or not I wanted to take one on. But then when I became knowing about it, I realized that I need to have this person here. This person is going to help grow and thrive the business. This person is going to help take on more clients. And without her, I wouldn't be able to manage. It would be extremely difficult. I shouldn't say I wouldn't, but it would be extremely, extremely difficult. So it's a very well spent investment that costs me thousands of dollars per month to pay that one person for their time. And that's what people don't understand. In fact, one of the things that, I've really focused on this year is really being more selective about the people that I associate with. Because the one thing that if you guys don't know this is just that if you don't value your time, someone else will value it for you. And 99% of the time, they're going to devalue your time. Time is something that we can't get more of. Because every time, so this time, the last 40 minutes that I've been on this episode with you guys, this time I'm not going to get back. But it's time well spent to share, to educate you guys, give you some perspective that hopefully you'll be able to extract some information from and apply to your own life, to your own business, to your own entrepreneurial journey. And understand the difference between wanting something, knowing that something is going to happen, and hopefully not having any kind of entitlement around it. Because that is really the key issue. Okay. A lot of people on social media feel like they're entitled. A lot of people on Instagram feel like someone owes them something. The world owes them something. That they're entitled to that Lambo. They're entitled to that big house. They're entitled to have that boyfriend or girlfriend. They're entitled to have deep bank accounts. You're not entitled to anything. Nobody owes you anything. And that's precisely the mindset that's prohibiting a lot of you and a lot of people on the internet from accomplishing the things that they want to accomplish. Okay? And so, again, I want to leave that with closing again. If you haven't subscribed to the RAS Project, please do so. That way you can get latest episodes. And hopefully this particular episode on wanting versus knowing versus entitlement helped you in some form or fashion. Because, again, that is the end goal. Again, I want to thank everybody on Apple Podcasts specifically that's casted reviews. I know there's some other folks that have casted reviews. I'm very humbled and appreciative that you guys took the time. Thank you. Thank you so much. Those of you watching. And if you enjoyed this episode, if you're just a viewer or a listener, I would greatly appreciate it that if you got value out of this episode, feel free to share a review on Apple Podcasts. I would extremely, extremely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Because after all, this is why the RAS Project has been running for 6 years now. And I feel like we've just actually started. And again, before I forget, the next episode of the RAS Project will be this Friday. Stay tuned. You might be a guest. It might be another live episode. And again, that's all I really have to say. Remember, you can want something, but without knowing that it's going to happen, then you're only having desire and you're not being intentional about it. And you need to be intentional about the things you want. Intentional and actionable about the things you want, because that's how you're going to accomplish those things. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This was episode 116 of the RAS Project with yours truly, Ivan Temelkov. Until next time, have a blessed day. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me. God bless. Bye-bye.